Hello guys, I'm Andrew. I'm a rhombus and I'm a play button. Now, I'm forcing a smile as you can see because you guys forced me to read 3 lovely chapters. Zeus interferes, a brave old man, and the epilogue. So let's start. In the morning, the gates of the city remained locked, and down on the beach the proud ships remained propped up on their keels. It was as if the world without Hector had changed, and even the gods were resting. The sea was still, except for a tiny ripple at the edge as it softly rose and fell. Breathing, Achilles looked out over the pale sea, mourning his friend. A company of men and mules searched for driftwood and logs. Tall oaks were felled, split, and dragged to the shore where Achilles stood. Patroclus' corpse was brought in procession, embalmed and sweet-smelling, and placed on the pyre. Around it offerings were laid, double-handled jars of honey and oil. 4 horses and 2 of the dead man's dogs were placed beside him. Then Achilles did something terrible. He sent 12 brave Trojan prisoners on the same journey and placed their bodies on the pyre. The gods sent an eager wind to kindle the fire. The billowing smoke could be seen inside of Troy. Achilles had promised to give the corpse of Hector to the dogs and would have done so had Aphrodite not protected it with perfumed oils and hidden it in a sea mist. Funeral games were held as a pall of smoke lifted up into the pale sky and reached as far as Olympus, where Apollo complained to Zeus. Achilles is getting up every morning, harnessing his chariot horses and then dragging Hector's body around the barrow they have made for Patroclus. This is shameful. Hera tried to argue that it didn't matter, that Achilles, son of a goddess, might do as he pleased. But the Thundermaker roared at her. Not if I say he shall not. Zeus sent for Thetis. Tell your son that if he refuses to return Hector's body to Priam, his father, he risks my fury. Remind him. Zeus muttered cruelly that he hasn't got much time to live longer himself. Thunder rumbled throughout the mountain tops, and sheets of lightning lit up the sky as Thetis hurried away to Achilles, who was at the water's edge throwing stones into the sea. Achilles, she called, it does you no honor to treat the body of noble Hector as you do. Achilles turned away angrily. You will listen to your mother. Zeus is angry. Look over the water and see. And she pointed at the shimmering lightning. Zeus orders you to accept a ransom from King Priam. Across the water, thunder rumbled from one side of the sky to another. Achilles nodded and bowed his head. Very well. If that is what I must do, let it be. He sighed and lifted his head. The lightning stopped, the thunder died away, and a soft wind blew over the sea. A brave old man. In Troy, in King Priam's palace, there was only the constant sibilance of women weeping, and Romache sat in her room staring at the wall, tears running down her begrimed and bloody face. Hector's mother sat on the terrace outside the window and refused to eat or drink or even to speak with her broken husband, King Priam. Hector's children watched and whispered to each other from time to time. At last King Priam slept. Ares came to him in a dream with a message from Zeus. Priam, know that Zeus wants you to ransom your son from Achilles. Take courage, take suitable gifts, and you will succeed. Go alone. Priam stirred in his sleep. Take one old servant to drive a cart filled with your gifts and large enough to bring back your brave son's corpse. You will have the protection of Hermes until you reach Achilles' hut. After that, you will be alone with him. He will not kill you, nor will anyone else. Achilles fears Zeus. Priam awoke and told his family, I am going down to the Greek ships to ask Achilles to release Hector's body. The family was terrified that he would be harmed, but Priam refused to listen. He gathered together the richest clothes and household goods, the best cooking pots, a jeweled cup from Thrace, as well as pieces of gold plate. Trojan citizens told him he was crazy to believe Achilles would not kill him. Priam raised his staff and ordered them to leave his palace. This is my son. Go, mind your own business. If I am meant to be killed by Achilles, then I will gladly die beside my son. Just leave me to do as I will. He turned then to his other sons. I wish you were all dead and Hector lived. 3 brave sons I lost in this war. Mestor, Troilus, the charioteer, and now the godlike Hector. King Priam looked around and saw Paris standing beside Helen. Paris, you will fill the cart with treasures. Then I'll leave. I can't bear the sight of you. As soon as the cart was filled with the ransom, Priam's wife came to him with a golden cup of fine wine so that he could make a libation to Zeus to ensure his safe return. I don't want you to leave me, husband, but as you must, please send a prayer to Zeus, son of Cronos, and ask for an omen to be sent as you ride down to the Greek lines. Priam poured the libation and made the prayer. Zeus heard his words. As the gates of the city opened and Priam and his old servants rode out alone on the mule cart, Zeus sent a hunting eagle soaring high up in the darkening sky as a good omen. The sun was sinking beyond the edge of the world as Priam approached the Greek ships. It was undoubtedly dangerous for the old man and his servant. They stopped to rest the mules and let them drink. A man came out of the shadows. How could they know it was the god Hermes come to ease their way? Priam told him they were looking for Achilles, and Hermes agreed to escort them. They made their way through the lines, invisible to the sentries and the Greek warriors, until they reached Achilles' hut. Old Priam climbed down from the wagon and walked toward the hut. Hermes opened the door and stood in the doorway as the hooded figure went in. Achilles was feasting as Priam strode in the light of the cooking fire. To the astonishment of the others there, the old man immediately knelt in front of Achilles and kissed his hands, the hands that had slaughtered his sons. Achilles, think of your own father and what he would have felt if he was in my place. I had the best of sons, not one worthy of the name is left to me. Please remember the gods and pity Hector's father. I have humiliated myself by kissing the hand that killed my sons. Surely that must be enough." Remembering his own father, Achilles lifted the crouching figure and wept as Priam wept. Then he spoke quietly to the old man. "To have dared to come here alone shows who it was that made Hector what he was. Men are wretched things, and the gods make sure we suffer." He smiled gently at the old man. "Remember, sir, that mourning for your son will not bring him back, and you have more life still. Please sit down and have wine with us." Priam refused the kindly offer, but urged Achilles to accept the ransom he had brought. Achilles said, "Priam, I have already decided that your son shall come back with you." It happened as Achilles promised. King Priam brought the brave Hector to Troy, and there his body was prepared by his grieving wife, Andromache. She spread sweet oils on the body of her husband, his mother came, and his two sisters. Then the body was taken to be burned. It was agreed that no attack would be made while the pyre burned, nor while the white bones were placed inside of a golden chest and laid inside a burial pit under a monument of huge stones that the Trojans built outside of their mighty walls. But on the 12th day after the ceremony, Achilles rode his war chariot toward the city, and behind him came his warriors. The war began again. The epilogue. The siege went on. Achilles struck terror into the enemy and took his men raiding in the countryside around the city. The Trojans stayed behind their walls. They had enough food and fresh water. What they lacked was a hero to give them hope. Priam sent messengers to his half-brother, asking him to send his son, Memnon of Ethiopia. Memnon came, tall and as brave as a hunting lion. He agreed to fight the Greeks in return for suitable gifts. This warlike man gave courage to the Trojans. They soon roared out of the city, surprising the Greeks and almost reaching the beached ships with their blazing torches. Achilles was away when Thetis brought him the news. Memnon has challenged any Greek to take him in single combat. And King Nestor's bravest son, a friend of Achilles, had been slaughtered by the Ethiopians. Achilles hurried back to Troy, where Ajax was about to fight Memnon. Ajax of 1,000 battles and Memnon each stood their ground before the gates of Troy. Memnon wore a black marked helmet and carried a war spear with a sharp-bladed head and a long bronze sword. They stared into each other's eyes and waited for the signal. Racing across the open plain, Achilles came, armed for combat. Zeus looked down, holding the scales that balance life and death. Paris, unseen by any Greek, crouched behind a shield, stared over the dusty plain, and bent his arrow. He waited as Achilles stepped down from his chariot and talked to Ajax. "Memnon is mine, Ajax. He killed my friend, the son of Nestor, my father's friend. I claim the right to do combat with him." Paris smiled and took a 3-barbed arrow from his quiver. Ajax stepped aside and Achilles took his place. Memnon was the first to cast his spear. It hit Achilles' shield, bounced off the bronze embossing, and lay bent in the dust. Paris knocked an arrow to his bowstring. Achilles stepped closer to Memnon, leaning back with his arm fully extended, and threw his spear full force at the Ethiopian's neck. Apollo nudged the flying spear aside and saved Memnon's life. Paris fingered his bow. waiting to avenge his brother Hector. Zeus put a weight in the balance of life and death. It tipped to sentence one of the two fighters to an early journey into the underworld. Memnon stepped quickly toward Achilles with his sword ready. Achilles feinted to the left and then to the right, and as fast-footed as ever lunged straight at the advancing warrior. His sword found a space between the breastplate and the silver-studded belt, and it eased through muscle and gut as the giant warrior ran himself onto Achilles' blade. He dropped like a slaughtered bull. Achilles turned his back on Troy and raised his hand in triumph. Seeing his chance, Paris let his arrow fly. It flew as a hawk flies to make its kill, remorseless, eager, unchangeable. It began to dip toward the ground and lose power, but still, it flew straight and true. Achilles had been protected from the weapons of men since the time his mother had dipped him in the dark waters of the river Styx. Now the arrow found only the place her fingers had covered in the whirling waters. It smashed through his heel. It killed him. So Achilles died at the hands of Paris, who had stolen Helen and caused the war. Paris, whom Hector called a woman. With Achilles went all hope for the Greeks. Agamemnon wanted to leave and go home, to abandon the city of broad streets. It was Athena who proposed the final cunning solution to the siege. All they have to do is get into the city and open the gates to let in the wild warriors who want nothing more than to sack and loot all of Troy, she said to Hermes. Tell Agamemnon to listen when someone comes with a way to open that barred and locked gate. Agamemnon listened to the cunning Panopeus. He proposed that they should build a huge wooden horse, fill it with the bravest men, and persuade the Trojans that it was an offering to the gods that the Greeks had left when they sailed away. Odysseus later said it was his idea. No one can deny it, as all the others there at the time had died either in Troy or on the journey home. Odysseus was never slow to claim credit, but he was the brave man and agreed to hide inside the wooden horse with 23 armed men. After the horse had been rolled into full view of Troy, Agamemnon burned the Greek camp, ordered the boat out to sea, and sailed away. As dawn broke, the Trojans came to the shore out of curiosity. The ships were gone, the siege was over, and they rejoiced. They found one man still scavenging around the camp. He told them the Greeks had made offerings to the gods, and the wooden horse was one of their offerings. The Greeks had said it was to remain on the battlefield. The Trojans argued among themselves about the meaning of the horse. Some saw it as a threat, but eventually they rolled it into their city, closed the gates for the night as usual, and for the first time in 10 years slept without fear of a Greek attack. From the belly of the wooden horse, the Greek soldiers slipped into the dark streets of the sleeping city. 2 men climbed to the battlements, while the rest hurried to the main gates in the vast stone walls. The men on the battlements lit a fire. Agamemnon saw it from far out at sea, and he ordered a fleet back to the bay below the sleeping city. The gates were unbarred and opened to admit Agamemnon's troops. Menelaus and Diomedes came with Ajax. All the heroes left alive come like hunting wolves into the city to join Odysseus. They sacked the city, looted riches, butchered men and boys, and enslaved the children and women. Smoke rose in the mighty pall. Then the fleet, which had been away 10 years, sailed back out across the blood-dark sea. Almost all failed to reach home. Even the wily Odysseus only returned after 10 more wild and wandering years. But that is another story. The city walls are still there, layers of black ash and rubble, the haunt of carrion birds. From Troy came treasures, gold, precious stones, bronze mirrors, gold plate, delicate bracelets, and filigree crowns. Sometimes in the night the wind howls over the plain. They say it is the souls of those who died and left their blood in the land around Troy. We finally finished! We're not gonna be a week late! Yay! Now say thank you, Andrew. Okay, I'm just kidding. That was the Iliad. We finally finished. We'll be starting a new novel. If you're reading this on Friday, next week. If you're reading this on Monday or Tuesday, or Thursday, it would be on Friday or Thursday. It would be next week. If you're reading it on Monday or Tuesday, this week. Thank you. Bye.